Oh, hello. I didn't hear you come in. Well, as we approach Valentine's Day and snow is out and about, I seem to have come up with a dilemma. I'm all out of time and with nowhere left to film. So here I am, inside, in bed, with so many swords. Perhaps you find that you're overheating as we approach Valentine's Day. Can I interest you in some cold steel? No, seriously, I'm out of time and I have nowhere to film. So I have a whole bunch of swords that need to go back to my friend, and I thought, why not just take a quick review and have some comments on them off the top of my head. Perhaps you guys will enjoy this bedtime review of some beautiful swords. We'll start off with this custom Tatar saber from Wojciech Czeklowski. I haven't been able to figure out how much his sabers sell for. I believe they're between $500 and $1,000. This is really cool. It comes with a very custom scabbard, or specific scabbard that's very accurate to this type of sword. These are from roughly the 16th century, 16th, 17th century. These are from Eastern Europe, and you'll see that they have elements that show that they're from the Mongol period, or that have heritage from the Mongol period with the way that the suspension's done. It's got a custom leather scabbard. It also has this sturgeon grip that is characteristic of these Tatar, Crimean Tatar saber designs. It has this angled pistol grip and a very short guard here, and the whole blade is just beautiful. It's got a very simple bow sort of profile to it. Does have a false edge and is very easy to manipulate in the hand, and it really locks here in the hand. I have found that it cuts quite well, but it provides a lot of hand shock if you don't make it all the way through the target. So make sure that when you're delivering these cuts from horseback, you go all the way through the target and don't leave anything behind. Next up, we have this one that's been featured on the channel several times. This is from Ludl. Unfortunately, Ludl is not producing swords anymore, but this is a Katzbalger, so from the Landsknecht in the German lands from the middle of the 16th century. And this one is medium-sized, but of course the most spectacular feature of it is the wavy blade. So this is a Flamberge-style Katzbalger. Doesn't have a lot of distal taper, so it has a lot of flex to it, or a lot of vibration, I should say. Locks in the hand beautifully, wonderfully done hilt. Love the blackened steel, and it slots really nicely here. The sharpness of it allows it to sail through light targets, so the undulations don't make any difference against just simple skin or the like. But we found that in testing that these little waves here really do a number on fibrous targets. So if we're going up against rope or wood or anything like textiles, it really seems to dig and bite very well, much more so than just a simple straight edge does. I'd be very interested in checking out more types of Flamberge, because there's different types of waves, different types of angle, different types of sharpness, and they probably do have slightly different performances against different types of target. Now, the rest of them are Albions, and we are well acquainted with Albions here on the channel. This first one is the Albion Tratonia, and this is a lot of arming swords. This is a Type 13B, so the last in the 13 family of arming swords, and it is a single-handed Type 13, so Type 13s can be big, great swords of war. This is an arming sword, so it's meant to be held in one hand. And this is one of the very few swords that I actually feel inadequate when I am trying to swing around. It's 1,500 grams, and it feels every bit of it. And it's interesting because Peter Johnson, when he designed this, he designed it to balance and handle like a fencing sword. So it still manipulates as a sword that's designed to be used with a shield and to be able to combat someone else, but it just seems like it's scaled up for a person who's even bigger and stronger than I am, and it is very rare that I find swords that are like that. It's got this big globular pommel on the end, it's got this large cross, and of course the blade is just tremendous and wide. It has a fuller running down the middle, it's got the lenticular section, it bends where you'd expect it to bend, and it just has this tremendous cleaving power because of how broad it is. It almost has a shovel nose at the tip, but it has just a little bit of a point, so it still can deliver thrusts reasonably well. But it comes from a period, of the kind of early medieval period. It's worth noting that this is one of the very few cases where I find that the cross, or the fittings of that Albion has executed, are very slightly sharp. So if I slot my hand right up at the top, it actually chafes my hand very slightly. This is the only time in the dozens of Albions I've handled where I've actually encountered that. Most of the time, Albions are really smooth, buttery to the touch at all parts of the fitting. So that's rather interesting. But that would be very easily touched up with just a little bit of sanding, and then it'll go right back to super duper smooth. Now over on this side, I have my Elmsley family of swords. And the very first one is one that I was waiting to handle for quite some time. So this is perhaps my favorite of the bunch, and it's going to be the one that's hardest for me to let go. This is the Albion Vassel. I'm sorry, yes, the Vassel, the falchion. This is a Elmsley 3C falchion, possibly a 3B, depending on what day I'm looking at it. So it's single-edged with a double clip point here. And if we look at it from the top, of course, this would look like an arming sword. It's just got a simple J-type pommel. It's got a nice cross on here. It's got multiple risers on a grip, but it would look just like a medieval sword from the top. It has two fullers, so it's got one long fuller and one short fuller and a miniature, almost ricasso area. It's just a small blunt area on the bottom here. And at the end of this first ricasso here, or at the end of the first fuller here, is where the beginning of the false edge and shallow clip starts. And then it's got the very deep clip leading to this wicked point for thrusting there. I believe that these wouldn't have been particularly sharp originally, but this is now third hand that is coming to me, and they have since been sharpened. This sword delivers devastating cuts. I personally find it very comfortable and easy to manipulate in the hand, but I am used to dealing with kind of long types of early period medieval arming swords and cavalry swords and the like. So some people might find it a lot of sword in the hand. I personally don't. I find it very easy to work with, just like a long arming sword. It does not handle like a machete at all. It's got a very broad blade. It's got a very thick spine here. It narrows out to a very thin amount here. It has a very fragile edge, so this is something to go up against textiles, to carve up man flesh. It will not do good against helmets or against chainmail. You could slip this tip through to try and burst rings if you want, but it is very, very thin. It's not reinforced, not for going against armor. Yes, for cleaving through soft targets and just keep sailing. Right next to it, we have a kind of custom piece. So this is an Albion, but sitting inside of a scabbard. This has a custom scabbard from Valiant Armory. So this is a combo job, and the scabbard looks very handsome. Valiant Armory is known for great scabbards, and this is no exception to the rule. This is a really handsome scabbard, even if it's just very simply done with a nice, just U-style shape stapled onto the end. The sword is a messer, and this is the Soldat. Now, I've handled many types of Langmesser over the years. Langmessers are usually kind of one of two camps. There's either the very kind of light and nimble civilian Langesmesser, which is very almost like a real just large knife in the hand, and is, even though it's quite big, it's just very, very light and easy to manipulate, and others which are very sturdy and robust and almost like a sword, not unlike this Vassel that I'm holding here. This is somewhere in between. It doesn't have a particularly long grip. Sometimes Langesmessers have hand-and-a-half grips on them. This one, you can see, has a very similar blade profile. So these are, if not exactly the same, they're of similar design thought, you'd say. This one curves a little bit more and doesn't have the same wasting that the Vassal does. And while it's not as heavy duty as some of the messer that I've handled before, this one isn't as light as even longer examples that I have worked with. So somewhere in between. It does have, again, the double clipped pattern of the Type 3C. It has the single wedge cross section from the big thick spine. The quillon is beautiful in the octagonal cross section with some lovely detailing along the cross. The nagel is put in well and has polished down so nicely on the other side that I can't even see where it was put in. The wood of the scales is great, and as are the rivets holding it in place, and the pommel end here is got some lovely little detailing and sculpting work. So on the whole, this is a very refined and polished messer, even though these type of messers are oftentimes a little bit more rough, especially if you're looking at historic examples. So this is somewhere in between a civvy messer and a military messer. This is probably intended to be for someone who is a very lightly armed soldier, just like the name Soldat suggests. Should I end there? Of course I can't. We have one last one. So if you spent any time on the sword tubes, on the YouTube sword tuber collection, everyone should recognize this. This is the Albion Knecht, and this one also has a custom scabbard, this time done by Todd of Todd's Workshop. And of course, the work is quite nice. It has the long belt-wrapped suspension system, as we see the Langsnecht would wear, and it's got a lovely little shape here at the end that we can see in artwork of the time. The Knecht is interesting in that it has a very large grip. It's got these long rounded quillons that come out to flat ends here. It's got a pronounced nagel here on the end, and a particularly long grip that is very well shaped with the channel running down the middle and a kind of smooth pommel on the end. But for all the size of the hilt, the blade is kind of medium-sized as far as messer are concerned. In fact, I'd be tempted not even to call it a Kriegsmesser. I might call this a grosse messer if we use Elmsley's terminology. This blade is not even particularly long as far as long swords is concerned. This is somewhere in between a katana and a longsword length. Historic Kriegsmesser could get quite a bit longer than that. So because of that, you have a lot of hilt to be able to control and manipulate a only kind of modest sized blade, which makes this very maneuverable, light, and easy to manipulate in the hand. You have a stepped back, which allows it to socket into the scabbard, even with the swollen tip at the end, the single fuller running down the side, the, again, even grind all the way to the tip, and the wide flaring end like you see on Napoleonic era sabers. The combination makes it for a very easy to use, very forgiving cutter for light targets. Again, even though you have a lot of leverage and a decent amount of mass, if you really wanted to give someone a wallop, I wouldn't use this against armored targets. This is still designed for lightly armored targets, and in the era of the 16th century, when you had a mixture of very heavily armored knights and men-at-arms, along with people who are engaging in pike and shot, you can still find targets that are no longer protected, and that's where a blade like this is really going to excel. So this is beautiful. If you ever have the opportunity to get your hands on one and test one out, I certainly would, but as they're discontinued, that's getting harder and harder to do. So I hope you appreciated this chance to take a look at all these beautiful swords. I certainly did. Thank you, friend Sword of Damocles, for allowing me to take a look at all these beautiful swords. I hope you enjoyed this little foray into my bedroom, and we'll take a look at some more swords in the not-too-distant future. Until next time, guys.